right, and welcome in here once again to the Two Guys and Beer podcast. Andy Beckstrom with Shawn Field here for yet another episode of yours and my favorite podcast. At least that's what I've decided now. That's it's going to be my holiday gift to everybody through Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and Martin Luther King Day is going to be deciding for you that this is your favorite podcast.
That's perfect. I like the way you think.
So glad you could support everything that we're doing here. So. Once again, my name is Andy. I joined with Shawn once again, as always, and getting back into the swing of things, doing another episode here on another brewery. Today's brewery, Eagle Brewery. Shawn has some information about a brewery from across the pond.
It is
the way that I'll put it.
Eagle Brewery out of the UK, of all places. We've got banana bread beer here. It's not a very common beer. It is not very easy to find over here on this side of the pond either. It's kind of a hard spot, hard to find it. We did find it from a listener, actually found it and gave it to me.
Oh, so there we go.
That's how we got this episode going here, is those Beermeister listeners that we have.
See, and people think that we're just these fancy, highfalutin people that don't listen to the people that tune in, but here we are. We're immediate response.
It's all about the listeners.
Exactly.
Whatever they want, we provide.
So we probably, before we get too deep into it, probably should do the best part of the podcast.
Open her up.
It is a bottle with the pop top, so not a can. So it's maybe sound a little different, but still get the same kind of effect.
Still beer.
Definitely get that kind of banana bread smell to it. Eagle Brewery banana bread beer.
It does smell like bananas.
Kind of a different idea, a different concept. It's kind of, everybody's like, all right, what can we put in beer? And everything goes.
Bananas, yeah. Yeah, it only comes in a 4-pack, too. So it's hard to find over here, and it's $10.99 for a 4-pack. So it's not like the cheapest beer around either. Right. So what is your first impression?
Well, it's very light, that's for sure. Definitely get the banana kind of feel.
It is. It's a malt lager. Like a malt liquor, but a lager.
Yeah. I'm getting some of that. The maltiness is kind of adding, I guess, to a certain extent, that almost that bread flavor in a way. I think the name kind of helps push you that way to kind of believe it a little bit more. But I think that, it definitely kind of fits in with the description, the banana bread beer.
Yeah, the aftertaste, I think, is where you taste most of the banana.
Flavored malt beverage lagered blend. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, this is, I don't know, it's pretty good. It's light, kind of easy drinking, but definitely has that malty banana flavoring, which is a weird mix, I guess, in my mind.
For beer.
Yeah, to have like, I don't know if it's like the sweet and sour kind of, but it's like you take two different fusion in a way, two different, vastly different type of tastes.
It does have some sweet in there too. You can kind of smell the sweetness on it too. I think the aftertaste mostly is where you get the banana type flavor kind of at the end.
Yeah.
It's not so bad. Like, I would drink it again for sure. I don't think I would drink a lot of them. I think these more exotic type beers, if you want to call them that, you can drink one or two, but then you don't really want to drink any more after that. But it's good. It's interesting. 5.2% ABV. So it's not real strong or real potent.
It's also 11.2 U.S. fluid ounces. So clearly not rounding out to the 12 ounces. It's pretty sure it's probably deciliters or something.
Hectoliters, maybe.
I'm mostly making fun of America, so we'll use anything other than the metric.
Yeah. We're still stuck on standard here. Yeah. So Eagle Brewery banana bread beer. It's a flavored malt lager. Like I said, 5.2% ABV. It's amber colored ale. It does have strong banana smell when you open it up on the nose. It does smell kind of fruity and sweet, I kind of thought when I smelled it there. Interestingly enough, as I was reading about this beer, quite some time ago, ale beer was actually known as liquid bread. So that kind of fit right in with banana bread beers. We got some liquid banana bread beer right here. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's a little thicker, a little heavier.
Yeah. Yep. In 2018, the Eagle Brewery, that's when it was officially launched in Bedford, UK. And then actually that particular brewery was owned by other companies before, but this was in 2018 when the Eagle Brewery opened, was the first time that this brewery was open to the public. for a regular basis for tours and things like that. The facility was known as the Charles Well Brewery prior to the Eagle Brewery. When it was the Charles Wells Brewery, it originally opened up in 1976. So the facility has been around for a while as a brewery, but the Eagle Brewery that makes this banana bread beer since 2018. And then it was sold to Marston's in May of 2017 for $55 million. And Marston's is the one that bought it and rebranded it to the Eagle Brewery in 2017. It opened in 2018.
So a little bit more recent, but I mean, I guess you've seen that numerous times where a place kind of goes by the wayside or goes under, however you want to say it. Somebody can come in and swoop it up.
Right. Along with their tours that I was talking about, for the first time, this specific property actually allowed tours at the brewery. They allowed them in the brew house, fermenting rooms, and the bottling and canning lines. They also converted some existing space there to a tap room, of course, because every good brewery, of course, has a tap room for the patrons to enjoy some of this delicious liquid bread.
Trying to look a little bit on their website, and I think you mentioned it before too, but there's really no information here at all.
No, there's not. Not a lot to go off. I've had to do some digging to try to learn a little bit about it. They also opened up a brewery shop and visitors center with a visitors car park. The interesting thing, I was talking about this specific property, they also call it the Bedford Brewery because it's in Bedford, UK, is the city that it's in. This specific brewery is also home to many other of Britain's iconic ale brands like Bombardier and Courage. And this place has also packaged some of the other world famous beers that come out of Europe, like Estrella Damm, along with the beers that they make under the Eagle banner, which of course, those beers they make under the Eagle banner, we're having the banana bread beer here. They also have Waggle Dance honey beer and Sticky Toffee pudding beer.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
Sticky Toffee pudding beer. It seems kind of crazy. And then they have the Eagle IPA that you were mentioning a little bit earlier when you're kind of going through there. They also have a famous beer there called Kryn Ichiban too.
Oh.
Never heard of that one.
No, I'm not aware of that one.
Apparently it's world famous.
Well, it quite hasn't made it to the Midwest just yet, at least not here.
I was going to ask you your kind of thoughts on this. It's kind of come up, I don't know, maybe it's kind of a fad these last few years. These beers that they brew with these exotic ingredients like this stuff. It's kind of like a weird fad or trend, this banana bread beer and coffee beers and peanut butter beers and stuff. It's kind of crazy what are your thoughts on that?
I think
they're okay, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's fun to try it. Like, just get it out there, see if people like it, and just try anything once. That's how you end up finding different things that end up turning out to be amazing. You just throw something together, and that's what's fun about like being able to brew is like you throw stuff together and you just like, well, I think it's going to kind of taste like this, but I'm not really sure. And then you do it and you're like, well, this is awful. I'm going to just dump this out. But sometimes you get something, you can kind of tweak the recipe a little bit or tweak the additives to a certain extent. Sometimes I think it gets a little off the rails and a little far out there, but at the same time, like, that's fun. You go ahead and do that. I just won't drink it. That's where it's kind of the fun of it. Be able to do all sorts of different things. Like you said before, like the different type of beers, like the sticky toffee pudding. Seems like a very weird thing to have as far as like a liquid, but a lot of different things that you could toss in there.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of like you said, gets off the rails a little bit with some of these flavors and beers. Some of it I don't quite understand. When you drink one or two, that's great, but you typically don't go back for it again. It's just one of those things you're like, I'll try it just to see what it tastes like. And you're like, no, give me a normal tasting beer of some sort.
Well, and that's something that I think I've even said about here. What one is it? The Green Belt Blue.
Yeah,
that
blueberry one.
It's good. It's really good, but I'm not having a second one. Like I'm gonna go back. I'll drink like 6 IPAs, something with a lot of flavor or something like that. But when it gets too sweet like that, and that's fun. Go ahead and make the one, but you also got to be aware you're only going to sell so much of it. Just because, not because people don't like it, but because you just can't. If I have too many of those, I'm going to have the beatus.
Right,
it's going to be a problem. I already got the Wilford Brimley mustache. I don't need the beatus.
That's what I think about Angry Orchard. The apple beer, like you try it. It tastes like apples, but one of them it's about all you can handle ever. It's so sugary, you're just like, ugh. But I mean, it tastes good for one beer.
Yeah. I know some people that can just pound those back, the super sweet beers, and I can only do so much of that. And then it's like, well, I'll just have a mixed drink with Coke in it or something.
Sure. Yeah, the Eagle Brewery back in 2017, when it was acquired by Marston's, they now operated 6 breweries across the UK, along with a full estate. They have of 1,500 pubs across the country.
I hope they have more than just the 4 beers there. That's all that's on their website.
They do. Those 4 beers on their website, that's just under the Eagle brand.
Oh, that must be because I was looking at the shop a little bit, and there was a whole bunch of other things that were listed, and I'm like, there's Banks and Sunbeam Blonde. What else is here? Brax beer.
Yeah, they brew a lot
beer.
of different stuff there. Yeah. The Eagle brand only has those 4.
Gotcha.
4 specific beers.
But there's a bunch of different things.
Different things they have there because it's owned by a different brewery.
It'd be kind of fun to try the Hobgoblin Ruby 8 beer or the IPA.
I like that name.
It's kind of it's a Hobgoblin. It's kind of a fun name, and it's got kind of cool little picture, kind of little elf-looking guy. Looks like he's carrying an axe, and he's got a quiver with arrows or something. So I don't really know what he's going to do with that, but I don't know. Maybe it's just sticks or something. I'm sure he means no harm.
It sounds like a beer we should try, actually. I wonder if we can get a hold of any of that.
There we go. We'll have to make some connections. So if there's anybody from the UK that's tuned in.
Right. If you could send some over, that would be super. So that the Eagle Brewery, of course, under that brand, they bought that place 2017, reopened it in 2018 under the Eagle brand. Well, that place is pretty historic, that specific property and facility. I've never heard of Glenn Miller before, but apparently they had a Glenn Miller orchestra.
I was going to say the Glenn Miller band.
And they they played there. He played the last concert he ever played there was right where the tap room is. Actually, he played it for American and British troops in World War II. And after the concert, he actually departed on a flight on his way to France, never to be seen from again.
Do you remember the song In the Mood? I'm in the mood for a melody. I'm in the mood for a melody and the mood.
I don't think so.
Really good rendition that I did just there.
Keep singing, please. Please keep singing. I enjoyed that.
But that was one of the songs from Glenn Miller.
Do you know that song?
Actually, I think that may be from somebody else. I think In the Mood might be different.
Because this guy died in World War II, so in the 40s.
December 15th, 1944.
Yeah. Yep. On a plane.
Glenn Miller Orchestra.
Wonder if the UFOs got him.
It might have. They dropped him off
alien IPA.
Bermuda Triangle. That's really what happened there.
At that brewery site, that same facility, it also housed the local football stadium at one point in time, too. The Bedford Eagles football team.
There we go.
And I'm assuming soccer. So American football, but...
So football, but football?
Football.
Yeah. There we go.
It'd be interesting to go to this place. There's a lot of history on this specific property. Then, unfortunately, in July of 2022, Marston's, they did announce the sale of the Eagle Brewery. So they acquired it in 2017, opened it in 2018 under the Eagle Brewery brand. Well, they chose to sell it in 2022 to some of their long-term partners, S.A. Dam, D-A-M-M.
Dam.
Which is, apparently it's a well-known company in Europe, all through Europe, and they're best known for their popular premium beer, Estrella Dam. Is the name of their premium, not to be confused with another popular premium beer, a Premium Grain Belt. You make sure you don't want to get those confused.
Premium Grain Belt Dam.
That's premium.
I need to correct myself also on one of those. The song that I hummed or sang, definitely not by Glenn Miller. That was Robert Plant in 1987.
Well, you can sing that too if you want.
He has a different song that was In the Mood, but I feel like I recognize some of the songs. But it was definitely orchestra. Or a big band conductor, composer, trombone player, and recording artist. That's Glenn Miller.
Oh, yeah.
Who just did a concert there and then disappeared. Was abducted by the aliens in their IPA.
Abducted. He was gone. That would be a bummer. You're on your way to your next show and you just disappear and nobody knows what happened.
Right? And how long do you look like, well, his plane was over the ocean. Okay, well, he's not there.
Right.
Like,
why does that always happen to musicians?
There is a lot of that. I was actually just
the day
doing
that music died. Buddy Holly.
Mm-hmm.
Where did he crash? Was it Iowa?
I don't remember what it was.
John Denver. Did he crash?
Yep. John
Denver. The same plane? Was that a different plane?
Were you the one that was telling me that John Denver he crashed because he ran out of fuel? Somebody was telling me that recently. That like that's why it went down. That's why the plane went down.
Well,
he ran out of fuel.
Must be somebody else before you leave.
Exactly. I meant to tell you that. I think that was something that came up. That could be our random fact of the day.
Leonard Skinner. There's another band that half of them died in a plane crash.
Otis Redding, the Big Bopper. Multiple different ones.
Musicians should stay off of planes.
Who was...
That's the lesson from today.
Who was the one... Was it Aaliyah, the rapper? Like plane crash in like Jamaica or something? Like jet crashed into the mountain or something dumb?
Yeah, not long before that, like a few weeks before that, she said she was going to do music till the day she died, and she died 2 weeks later.
I mean, I guess she did.
She hit it out of the park right there.
Accuracy is really the key. So,
Travis Barker, he crashed on a plane, but he survived.
Yeah, he made it through. Yeah, to make silly life choices. But when you got that much money and whatever, why not? Like, would you like to be on TV and make $60,000 an episode? Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe it's more than that. I don't know, 600,000 an episode or something. I don't even know.
He makes plenty.
As Common says, I pay attention less to Travis Barker's love life and financial situation than I used to.
Was that her ex?
I think so.
What Kardashian is he even married to? I don't even know. Khloe? What are they? Khloe, Kim?
There's that's the thing is like there's enough of them, and I never watched the show, so I don't really know. But there was enough of them that there was like Khloe, Kim.
There's enough to go around for everybody,
right? And then there was like the younger ones or whatever that are more into like modeling. That like was now I can't even remember them off the top of my head, but I don't know. They're all kind of they're a lot. Their whole family. It's a lot. The Kardashian clan.
How did they even get famous?
I think it's mostly the dad, well, now the mom, but I think that's mostly kind of what was involved with it. I think that's probably where it came from.
Yeah, all I remember is Kim, before anybody knew her, was like hanging out with Paris Hilton, and like the paparazzi was taking photos of her, and then it was on TMZ or something.
I think it was Bruce Jenner, because he was an Olympic athlete back in the day. Yeah, Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, Kourtney Kardashian, and then there's two more daughters that have been much more in. I gotta try to find it now. It's going to drive me nuts because I kind of look at like, not that I track much of what's going on with their family because I just don't really care at all.
I don't get what your problem is,
but I got so many problems, so many problems. But there's only, in my mind, only like two of them that I think are like, I don't know. There's only one of them that they're famous models, so they're all kind of cute in their own little way. But I really think that there's only like one of them. Oh, Kendall Jenner and Kylie Jenner. Those are the two. Those are the two that I was thinking of. Kendall's the only one that I think is like overall attractive. But
isn't she married to a football player?
I don't think that she's married at all. She's
missing out.
Right. No,
there's a lot of athletes out there.
She's 28, but I think that she was, I believe, dating like a basketball player at one point in time, if I remember correctly. But again, I don't really.
Chris Humphries, who's he married to?
Following that, let's hear. Kendall was dating Blake Griffin for like a hot minute. Let's see here. And Ben Simmons. And then apparently more recently, Devin Booker. So she has stayed within the basketball realm. But Kylie Jenner has gone a little bit more deep into some of that stuff. Why are we talking about the relationship?
I have no idea. Let's get on to some stuff that we know about. Let's keep talking about
We've definitely gone right off the rail. This is probably the most that I've ever talked about this particular subject. You can believe me or not, but this is definitely not something that
I would agree. It was a good solid 8.5 minutes of Kardashian talk there.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in to all you Beermeisters out there listening to us talk about Kardashians while we're drinking banana bread beer.
We'll have to put the disclaimer in there somewhere that like from this point to that point, go ahead and just skip forward.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that was something different.
Ohatani.
There we go.
There we go. Ohatani. 10 years, 700 million, buddy. What do you think of that?
So, and we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. a couple of days ago, we started talking about this a little bit. And the question that came up on the radio, whatever, to a certain extent, like the contract and him and everything like that or whatever, like, it's funny because I have a lot less of an issue with it for him than I did back in the day when Alex Rodriguez signed his massive deal, or even when who's a third baseman for the Padres that just signed like a $500 million deal.
Fernando Tatis?
Like,
was that who it was?
Not him, the other one, because they signed like two guys to massive contracts.
Yeah, that's right.
It was the other guy that
I don't remember him now.
They came over or whatever. But that, like, some of those guys, like, I was just like, I can't believe you're and Bryce, that guy, I hate that guy.
Bryce Harper?
Bryce Harper. I just cannot stand it.
You're not a fan of the Harper?
Not even a little bit.
What's the catcher the Twins had with the Harper? Ron Harper?
Ron Harper, yep.
Is that Ron Harper's son?
Won himself a World Series? I don't think so. Maybe he is, but I don't think so. Let's hear. Who was I thinking about here?
Yeah, I think Major League Baseball needs a salary cap. $700 million, that's a lot of dough.
Yeah, so that's
a lot of dough.
So that was the question. Oh, Manny Machado. That was the guy that I was trying to think of, Manny Machado. And it's just, it's very hard for me to validate, like, is somebody worth that amount of money? I just can't. And honest to God, to a certain extent, it's not even so much like the yearly amount or the amount. It's more the duration. Like 10 years is a long time. Trust me, as a Wild fan, watching the Ryan Suter and Zach Parise crap blow up. Like, when you commit 10 years, like, all it takes is like your netminder that was it Delorier, I think, that was like a netminder for the New York Islanders years ago, signed like a 13-year contract or something like that for some ungodly number. He played like the first 5 games of the season. That was it.
Yeah.
He's out of the league, but they're still paying. So it's, when you make that type of commitment, that's always what kind of like boggles my mind, especially now with like Ohtani, like has a couple of elbow surgeries and a little bit of that going on. But at the same time, he still has the ability to affect the game from at bat. So even if he's not pitching, but if he is pitching, he's a frontline pitcher. And if you get a frontline pitcher for 4 or 5 years, maybe you pay $300 million for that. So then you're paying $400 million for one of the best hitters in baseball. So for that one, it's very weird because, like I said, I usually am just like, this is so stupid. But that one, I'm like, okay.
It's different. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, he's elite at both spots. He's an elite pitcher. He's a top 5 pitcher in baseball, and he's probably in the top 10 for hitting. I mean, what did he smash? 41 home runs last year? Yeah. Bat over 300?
It's just insane.
Like, that's insane. He's like the modern day Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth could do that.
Yeah.
Who since him to Ohtani can pitch and hit? I can't recall anybody.
And in the age of like specialization where everybody's got their one little niche and they have to focus on that, you almost have to be that good at it to be allowed to do it.
Right.
And that's insane. That says a lot about like how good he is at it, that they're like, I can't tell you no because you're our number one pitcher. Like, how do you say no to something like that? You almost have to let him do that. On the flip side, like, even, batting, like, okay, well, if you're like a 190 hitter with 1 home run over 5 years, you're probably not going to be doing that.
Which would be most pitchers in Major League Baseball.
You're just not going to be able to have the ability to do that because you can't focus on this craft or that craft. You have to focus so much on one thing, which, again, that's a whole separate thing that I loathe about what has happened with youth sports and even up to high school. But that's a separate episode. Come back, like, share, and subscribe. Come back for a future episode. I'll go on a little rant about that. But mostly what I look at it is, well, there's a salary cap or anything like that. Like, he's signing a $700 million contract. I'm looking at the Twins, who had a payroll last year of, I believe it was like $170 million, and them saying, we are going to cut payroll.
Yep, they're doing that.
They went to the playoffs and they said, we are going to cut payroll. And now I don't necessarily think that more money would have got Sonny Gray to stay here, because I think that he was kind of on his way out anyway. And Kenta Maeda, I wanted him, but it was kind of like I wanted him for a price. And if it was above that, I'm over it. So I wasn't super upset about like really either one of those. But at the same time, like, they're not going to be out there throwing all of the money at some frontline pitcher that's available. I don't know who's out there, Blake Snell or something like that. Like, I just don't see them. They weren't in on Yu Darvish. They weren't in on like so many different guys. It's just not what the Twins have ever done. And that's where to a certain extent, you look at, and this is something we talked about or whatever, like if it granted, it's not going to, there's a lot of deferred money and a lot of minutia, if you will, within the contract. And so if he is essentially, if we just take the flat math of $70 million a year, I mean, the 10 years, $70 million or whatever, you just do that. Let's see here. If I look up the old MLB payroll by team 2023 from Spot Track, SPOTRAC, great resource for all sorts of different things. The final payroll, the $26 million payroll, let's see here. Oh, total payroll. Here we go. 2023 full on payroll. If he makes $70 million a year, he is making $8 million more than the entire Oakland Athletics.
That is crazy.
Because they are at $62 million. That includes their injured reserve and everything like that or whatever. But that's what the disparity, that's what I think drives me nuts more than anything. I mean, should there be the ability to put more money out there and go get the more money? Whatever, you can make that argument. I think that for basketball, it just doesn't work. For football, I think football has done it beautifully because I think that it creates a lot of parity where you can succeed. Like, it's hard to have sustained success in the NFL.
It's very hard.
It happens, but it's very rare because you get up there and then everybody wants a contract and you can't pay them.
The money,
and then you drop down and then you got to draft again and build it back up. And it's just, it's a process. And that's why they did that way. And I think that's done brilliantly, and it creates interest across the nation. And that's why NFL is the biggest thing in the US, absolutely far and away, because everybody has a chance within a couple of years, even the next year, unless you're Cleveland.
Right.
But
they're playing well this year.
I was going to say either Cleveland or Detroit, but both of them.
5, I think. Joe Flacco.
Really actually having a great year. But from that standpoint, like, everybody's playing by essentially the same rules. NBA has a version of that where they have a salary cap, but they don't have a hard cap. You can go over it, but then you just pay a luxury tax, which really ear holes you. But, if you're a billionaire, what's a couple $1 million to be able to keep a core of guys that can win a championship? I'm going to sell more tickets. I'm going to sell more jerseys. I'm going to sell more hot dogs. I'm going to sell more beer.
Right. And if they're breaking even, they don't care.
Exactly.
They're billionaires.
And
so let's break even and win some titles.
If they're not, look, I just wrote off 3 businesses worth of money. I mean, I'm pretty sure they can make the numbers jive in a way. Like, people don't buy ball clubs. There was that argument a handful of years ago. I remember who was like, "Oh yeah, we don't make money like as an NFL owner." I mean, well, that's weird because if there's that many billionaires trying to become owners, you don't buy a business to fail.
Right.
So clearly, you can say that all you want, but I don't buy that line of bullshit.
No, I think they buy them to make money when they sell them in the future.
Yes.
Like,
it's at
the end of the season, I don't think they make much profit at the end of the season, but you wait 10 years from now, I'm going to buy it for $5 billion this year. Well, 10 years from now, I'm going to sell it for $30 billion.
The amount of money that the Vikings have moved up, I think that the Dallas Cowboys, from when Jerry Jones also bought it so long ago that like, I think I might have enough money in my bank account to be able to buy them in 1970, whatever. But now they're worth like hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, it's just unreal. But kind of back to baseball, like, basketball has that luxury tax. NHL has a hard cap. You just you can't go over it. It's kind of like the NFL in a way. But baseball, they have a version of it where if you get above a certain amount, like, it's not like these luxury tax like basketball where you're paying like X amount. You're paying a certain amount, but you're also not. It's not as bad. But it does help the lesser teams become a little bit more tenable. But at the same time, if you're one of the lesser teams, but your payroll is still only $62 million, you're just pocketing that money. You're not making the team better or making the team more sustainable in a way. And so that's where I almost have more problems is that, like, if you have that type of situation, you almost need like maybe a salary cap or an idea of it and harsher penalties for going over kind of a loose salary cap like basketball to a certain extent. But you almost need like a salary floor. Like, let me shoot these numbers here at you. Last year, we already covered the Oakland Athletics. They had the least amount of payroll in the MLB, $62 million, which is just paltry. It's amazing to me.
Especially in 2023.
Oh my God.
It's so little.
Unreal. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams out of 30. So almost a third of the teams that are under $100 million. And if you want to just do flat 10, there are a third of the teams, 10 of the teams that are under $120 million.
Sure. Well, that's almost
take,
half the Major League Baseball right there.
Do you want to take a stab into the darkness? You can play along at home if you'd like to as well. Take a stab in the dark. What team? And because I actually forgot it was this team. I thought it was a different team. But what team had the top payroll? And roughly speaking, I'll give you a $5 million leeway, plus or minus. I'll give you a $10 million leeway, plus or minus. What team was the number one, and what was their 2023 payroll?
Do I get two guesses?
You get two guesses.
I would say the Yankees or the Texas Rangers.
The Yankees were number 2, and the Texas Rangers were number 4.
Okay.
The Texas Rangers at number 4. I'll even give you a little bit of a hint. Texas Rangers at number 4 were $251 million. Now, again, let's recap. A third of the teams are less than $120 million.
Right.
For those playing at home, 8 of them are under $100 million. But the Texas Rangers at 4, 251. So there are 3 teams ahead of them, one of them being the Yankees.
When you said they're number 2, was it the Astros?
Nope, the Astros are 7th.
Okay. The Mets.
Mets are number 1.
I was going to say, I have some.
The Mets are
at what?
New York.
$650 million?
$343 million. Oh. So at $343 million, they are some $280 million above the Oakland Athletics.
That's so terrible. Is there revenue sharing in Major League Baseball?
200. So let's.
What about TV deals and divide that money between the teams?
So I just had some math that popped into my head because numbers are fun. I had mentioned $280 million more than the Oakland A's. The Yankees, number 2, had a $278 million payroll. So basically, they were the entire New York Yankees ball club above Oakland for payroll.
That's so crazy.
So, again, neither here nor there. You can make the argument for whatever. Like their 26-man payroll was $104 million. So they ended up with, what did they have? $160 million retained. They had $80 million on injured reserve. Like, they had a lot going on with their squad last year. The Phillies had $218 million on their active 26-man payroll, 245 for a total. That was the highest for like the 26-man total, like the active roster. Oh no, I take it back. I was way off. Oh no, yeah, I'm sorry. I looked at the wrong thing. I seen the Angels, but that was different. So yeah, the Phillies had the largest. They had the 5th overall, but they had the largest 26-man payroll. But that's still that's where it's like okay, I don't necessarily think that $343 million for a team that doesn't make the playoffs. That's one of the things that I do like about baseball is that, like, go ahead, throw all your money at it and get knocked out in the first round if you make it there. Because you look at the teams that are on the list 1 through 5. Mets didn't make the playoffs. Yankees didn't make the playoffs. Padres didn't make the playoffs. Rangers, I suppose they did make the playoffs.
They did.
The Phillies did make the playoffs. The Dodgers were the number 1 team, but they lost right away. The Astros were in the playoffs. The Angels missed the playoffs. Blue Jays, were they in the playoffs? Yeah, they were in the playoffs.
They were in
Twins
the playoffs. Yep.
And then the Braves were number 10. So like a third of the top 10 made the playoffs. So almost 2/3 of the top 10 didn't make the playoffs as far as top. So that's it to a certain extent. And that's why it's mind-boggling to me that there's still teams that are like, I can buy my way in. Texas Rangers, obviously notwithstanding. But that's one of the other things that, like, from that, and I was going to do a little bit more research on this because I knew we were going to talk about this, that the argument is always the top payroll doesn't guarantee you a World Series. And you look back and blah, 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 and everybody's like, well, yeah, the team that won the World Series was 4th in payroll or 12th in payroll, and what the Royals won it, they were like bottom in payroll or whatever. But if you look at like all of the teams that make the playoffs, that's really, isn't that what everybody always says? Is like, you just want a chance at the dance.
Just get in there.
Just get there, and then who knows what's going to happen. Maybe like you look at the Dodgers won 1 million games throughout the regular season, but then got swept out of the playoffs. They didn't have pitching, but they had one of the top payrolls. But that's one of the things that, like, it doesn't necessarily like guarantee success. But if you look at the bottom teams, that doesn't necessarily mean, conversely, that just because you have a low payroll that you're going to get to the playoffs or have a chance. You look at the bottom teams, A's didn't make the playoffs. Orioles, they made the playoffs, didn't they?
I don't remember. I thought they were pretty good, though, for a minute.
I thought that they did. So didn't they win the East?
Nah, they were close.
They were right there. I think that they made the playoffs.
They were right up there, yeah.
Pirates did not. Tampa Bay, they're kind of an outlier to a certain extent. But like the Guardians did not make the playoffs. The Nationals did not make the playoffs. The Royals did not. The Reds did not. The Marlins did. But to a certain extent, I guess now I prove myself wrong here now because a third of the bottom 10 teams did make the playoffs. So am I arguing against myself here? I was just trying to say that like I feel like it should be a little bit more balanced. And really, like, I think there should just be a floor. You know what I mean? $125 million or whatever you want to set it at, $100 million or whatever. Because, I mean, yes, that does affect 8 teams, but at the same time, like,
it's got to make them more competitive somehow.
Let's push it up there just a little bit. Do we need to have more massive contracts? Not necessarily, but like you see teams that are playing the games like the Twins used to. I don't know that they're still doing it, but I know that a couple of years ago that they had a player that was kind of on that cusp of coming up, but they're like, no, he's not ready. He's not ready yet. We're going to put him to AAA. Magically, after about 12 games, though, then they could call him up because that pushed back another year of service time and arbitration eligibility. Okay, you play the game and you do that or whatever, but then you end up with the 16th largest payroll, $156 million, what the Twins had. It just pay the man. Like that's the stuff that drives me nuts or whatever. That like if you're playing like A ball, and I remember reading a book forever ago. This is Kirby Puckett, so this was the 80s, so obviously a much different era than it is now. But at the same time, like there's still people I think probably do some of that stuff. He would sneak into laundromats and wait for people to like put their stuff into the washer, wait a little bit, wait for him to leave, quick throw his jerseys and stuff in there because they didn't have that for the team. You had to do your own, and he didn't have the money to pay for a load of laundry. So he would just sneak it in there and then quick try to get in there before it was done to take it out, wait a little while, read a magazine, like, I don't know, play pinochle with your kid, local kid or something. I don't know what you were doing in 1986, but, and then go back in there and then toss it into the dryer with somebody else. And I just don't think, do I think that they should be making millions and millions of dollars? No, but like, let's make this a tenable wage. I mean, even if you're playing A ball and you're on your way up or something like that, let's make it, you can actually survive. If you're, let's say you're a part of the San Francisco Giants organization and your team is in San Francisco. San Francisco is not a cheap city to live in.
Right.
So either you're commuting and driving an hour in to play baseball.
But where does the money come from, though?
I don't know.
That's the question.
And that's where I don't know. I think
they do revenue sharing?
It's got to be. There is a certain amount of certain amount of revenue sharing because that's where like the luxury tax.
Where do the Oakland A's get the money to increase their payroll? Do they just not have it? I mean, the stands are pretty empty. This last year, there was average 5,000, 6,000 in attendance. That's pretty rough.
It was really brutal.
Do you think it's going to help them moving to Las Vegas to increase their revenue?
I do to a certain extent.
It may.
No, it's the Coliseum, the stadium that they were playing in was pretty awful. And I hate to say like the stadium is the thing, but at the same time, I've seen what happens when the Metrodome went kaput and they built 2 new stadiums and now pack everything. Even if they had a subpar Twins team, they'd still be able to get 20,000, 25,000 in there. But it still is like the attendance is a certain amount of
because you get all the income from the hot dogs and the jersey sales and ice cream buckets and beer and
exactly. And then of course, like you mentioned, the TV dollars, and that's where it really drives me nuts. Like the stuff that's going on with what is it, Diamond Sports or Bally Sports or the regional stuff or whatever.
It's terrible.
Like not only that, like they're not paying, but they have the money to pay, but they're going through the bankruptcy proceedings since they're just not paying. So now these teams are just screwed out of the money. But then also like, okay, well, then let me out of the contract and let me go figure something out. No. We own the rights. No, you don't. You've defaulted on a payment. You don't get to do that anymore.
And who even watches it? Like our local area, Bally Sports, is all that we can get the local teams on, other than football because they're on national TV. And nobody has Bally Sports North.
Exactly.
Where do you even get that?
Yeah, it's not something.
Terrible.
It's
not on any platform. I downloaded the app once just to monkey with it, and that sucks. So I got rid of that right quick.
And that's where I don't know what the answer to be able to get. Streaming is more of the answer if they just fold it all within MLB.com and they just get a whole different wing of broadcasting and do it through there. Like, obviously, there's no way it's going to be the same as like the NFL. The NFL has 16 games or 12 games during bye weeks.
Right.
So they don't have, and then they put one on Monday and then one on Thursday and one on Sunday night. And so you're already down to like 2 sections of the afternoon where you only got like 4 games.
Yeah.
So it's easier to be able to kind of regionalize, but also like we just need one network and it's a massive hit.
Just do it.
There's no way over 162 games for 30 teams that you're going to be able to put all that on national TV. It's just not going to happen. Although I did like it when it was on like channel 29 or channel 45 back in the day.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. So I don't know if streaming is the answer for that. And you just pay like, because I've looked at like some of the MLB.com like streaming costs and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a little bit unreal for what, like I'm going to watch 2 games maybe
a week
through there.
If you're lucky.
Exactly.
You know?
But to mention, like get back a little bit to the amount of money, again, through TV contracts, you never really know. But that's where like the Yes Network is basically like the Yankees entertainment network. They get basically all of that money. There's not a ton of different teams that have that, but that's where they get like a ton of their money to be able to do that. Like Twins and other smaller areas, like they have to rely on regional sports networks and things like that to be able to do that. But this here from Statista, a website, total revenue of Major League Baseball in 2022, the MLB had an overall revenue of $10.32 billion, corresponding to an average revenue per team of $344 million.
So
now I understand
they're spending $67 million. Like they don't get any of that TV revenue. Should get a percentage,
so that's where like I don't
should
know
be divided out evenly across every team in baseball, just to help them field better teams or upgrade stadiums or whatever it is they need to do.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like it needs to be a lot more balanced than what it is. I mean, obviously they've been able to. I just made my own or defunct my own point, as far as payroll making the playoffs or not making the playoffs, but it does need to be a lot more balanced. It needs to be. Something needs to be kind of sorted out with that. And whether you raise the floor or whatever, but again, that's the argument is where does that money come from? Clearly there's money out there because you don't get, what are you doing if you have $344 million incoming? Yes, you have expenses. I totally get that you have expenses, but you could build a new stadium and put a 10-year lease on it or a 30-year lease because that's generally what it is for a stadium or something like that. So if you break down a $300 million open air stadium, granted they're closer to $1 billion now or 500 million.
They're insane.
But at the same time, like that's still like, we'll say $100 million a year for 10 years. That's $1 billion right there. So $100 million, if you have $344 million, okay, so now you're down to 244 because you got to make your payments to the construction company. So now you have $244 million. So what happens to the rest? Where's it going?
Does it go?
What is happening here? And so that's, I don't know. Again, that's through MLB, and that's a whole different thing, however you want to look at that. But it's, I don't know, it's mind-boggling to me that there isn't better revenue sharing with that it does seem like it is the haves and have-nots. I mean, if you just look straight at the top teams, New York, San Diego, Texas is kind of a metropolitan area. It's still like, it's a big, you're looking basically at the media hubs. Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Houston, Los Angeles, Toronto, Atlanta, Chicago.
Yep.
Like, obviously, when you start getting more middle of the road, Minnesota, St. Louis is not quite a huge media area. Detroit used to be, but it's definitely kind of course, Detroit itself is falling apart.
Gone the other direction.
But you look at like Oakland isn't a huge media area. Like that's the lowest one. I think there's a lot more. I feel like I want to have that not even part of the discussion because it's a whole different thing. But yeah, you could overlay like media markets over the top of this and you'd see a pretty direct correlation.
Right.
And that's where I don't really like that at all. Because in my mind, it goes back to the argument years ago that I used to watch a program called Pardon the Interruption. I don't know if you were a fan of PTI.
Yeah, I watched that.
Loved it for a long time, but then I just could not stand it because mostly Michael Wilbon would just go off about, like the question would be, is it good for the NBA to have other teams be good other than Boston and LA?
Right.
And they're like, nope, those two teams have to be good. And like, then what are we even doing here? What is the point?
What's the point
of that? Are your numbers going to be less? Yes, because there's less people there. But do you want to have a league that's all the way across the country? Or do you want to just have it in the 10 biggest media
East
markets?
Coast and West Coast,
because
basically.
Don't have a 32-team league. Just have a 10-team league and you can go play with yourself. Careful, don't get cute with that. But you know what I'm saying? Like, let's not worry about like the Timberwolves, a flyover country. Nobody's coming here as a free agent
Right.
anyway. But like, that's one of the things that like drives me nuts about stuff like that is when, yes, I understand your media. I don't know what you want to call it. If you want to look at it as like the giant malls, you know what I mean? You had Sears and you had your anchors, like the Mall of America, the four corner anchors stores, the big stores. That's really what makes the whole thing go. Boston, LA, New York. Yes, you want to have them be kind of in the mix. You obviously have to have teams there. But at the same time, if you want a 30-team league, you have to have other teams. And everybody needs to play nice in the sandbox.
Right.
It can't be those good every single year. Otherwise, the teams in the middle and the teams at the bottom just don't care.
And they're not. It's not going to work for fans either. There
Yeah.
has to be some kind of competitiveness somewhere else other than 4 or 5 spots.
And that's what drives me nuts about the Twins. Like, they had $156 million payroll. They were 16th in the league in payroll. They still went to the playoffs. I was still pretty happy about that. But when they come out and they're like, that was too much. We need to scale it back a little bit. But then I look at $344 million coming in. And granted, they kind of got screwed on some of the regional contracts. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if you make $1 million, that's fine. You're an owner. You have holdings all over the place. Being an MLB owner is not your only job.
Right.
So don't come and talk to me about, oh, we got to scale it back. Like, I'm not saying you have to spend $300 million. I totally get that. You don't have to do that. But there needs to be some sort of like middle ground. I mean, really, that middle from, like I was saying, like the top 10, if you get to 125 to 200 is the other 10 teams, is a very narrow margin. But then it obviously skyrockets. Like 125 to 250 gets you to number 4.
Sure.
So that's where like the bulk of the teams, then you get, you know, obviously the outliers, you know, Yankees, Mets, Padres, things like that or whatever. But I don't know. That's kind of my take. And I know that's less about Ohtani, but you're just more of a general. But if anybody has any feedback or their take on it, definitely put it in the old comments on the social media, you know, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever it is.
Yeah, it is
now.
frustrating, like how they do that though. Such the disparity in payroll for one team, the worst team, the lowest team to the highest team. That's pretty significant disparity between the Athletics and the Mets. Like, how do the Athletics or the Athletic fans even expect them to compete at all?
Yeah.
Basically, if you are going to compete, it's rookies and people you're calling up that somehow magically perform above average. And then they don't stick around because the A's won't pay. So the next thing you know, they're in New York playing for the Yankees and the Mets and Texas Rangers.
And that's what always kind of drives me nuts is like, if you got somebody, okay, we got a top frontline prospect. They're going to be just tremendous and we need pitching. Like even Jose Barrios, case in point, a couple of years ago, what did we needed pitching? We got a frontline prospect. No, we're going to trade him.
Yep.
And we're going to try to sign some frontline prospect.
And that did not go over well at all.
But we had him.
Right.
And I'm not saying that he was the answer necessarily, because I don't know that he's necessarily been a Cy Young clip necessarily. But at the same time, like, when do you make that decision to actually pay them? So this was an interesting argument that I heard on the radio last year when the Carlos Correa stuff was going down.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That like, okay, do you pay a pitcher or do you pay a hitter? Granted, a hitter is going to be in the field. They're going to be part of the thing, and they have a chance to hit the ball. They have a chance to have the ball hit to them at every single play. But if you reach that level, most everybody's pretty competent with the glove.
Yeah.
But essentially, you can't take over the game as a hitter. You just can't.
No,
because
you'll
get 4 at bats.
On a good day.
If you're
on
not
a good day, you'll get 4
exactly.
at-bats.
If it's a nothing
2 to
game,
3, probably average.
And you just got out in the previous inning, you don't get to just go up there and be like, I'm taking over the game. It's not like basketball or football where you can like, all right, we're going to feed the beast and like really affect things or whatever. A pitcher, granted, it's every like 5th day and a little bit different or whatever. But even from a closer standpoint, you can affect the game in a meaningful way for a duration. So really pitching is, in my mind, you know, what money.
Key. Yeah,
and so that's where it's amazing to me that there's not more money for that. But that's kind of the interesting part of baseball is it's so small, the sample size of what you can really affect. Like I said, you can, if you're a pitcher, you're a Justin Verlander, you're a stopper. That's what they call it. Like we got the bleeding going on. We're giving up runs left and right. All right, well, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to pitch 9 innings. I'm going to use 87 pitches. I'm going to have 37 strikeouts. None of that math adds up, but that's the point. You can really affect it. You can take over that game. If you're a guy like Carlos Correa or like even a Sammy Sosa back in the day, at your at bat, you can affect the game. But if you had like a Barry Bonds situation, you just send him to first, he would have neutralized the biggest threat in that lineup. Now, they still obviously won a lot of games and won some World Series.
They did, yeah.
Made it work because you got to build the entire team.
You
can't just have one. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you can't, I mean, you can dominate your at bat when you have that opportunity, but you can also just like, nope, you're going to first. And now you have taken that out of play.
Pretty much.
You know, and so I don't know, that's where it's kind of funny that there's so much money that's, spent on position players, but that's where it's all the money for Ohtani, because you can do all of it. You can affect it on a daily basis. But yeah, I think we've tootled off into at least we're not talking about the Kardashians anymore.
Right. So if you're the owner, are you spending $700 million on Ohtani?
If I am the owner of like the Dodgers or something,
you're the owner of the Dodgers.
Likely I am.
Would you spend $700 million for
Likely
Ohtani?
I am. And I made this argument at one point in time. I had a conversation. This was forever ago when Joe Mauer was going through his contract stuff. And they always like, oh my God, it's way too much money. He's never going to like make that money up. And I'm like, it's not about that. You're never going to break even on that. And maybe for a couple of years or whatever, but you're going to sell so many more jerseys. You're going to get more people in the stands. You're going to get so many more things with that. Plus, for a guy like Joe Mauer, he was a local guy. And so you kind of had to pay a little premium to kind of keep him. Not necessarily to keep him, because I think he would have stayed anyway, but you almost have to pay. You can pay a little bit more because he is the local guy. You know what I mean? If he's coming in from outside, especially in Minnesota, like the one of us factor, like you're going to make more money just from that. But yeah, it's, I don't know. Like, Ohtani, he's a generational type of talent. If he can stay, even if he doesn't stay healthy, how many times has he been on the injured list where he's missed time? Like, he had elbow surgery and he's still hit like 40 home runs. Yeah. So that's where I'm like, a guy like that, yes, I'm paying him that much.
I don't think
like the Machado and the other ones or whatever. I don't think that I'd be able to do that. But it sounds like, and I haven't looked at the actual structure, but it sounds like there's a lot of like deferred money that's in with that, which gets into a very interesting Bobby Bonilla style.
Pay him for 30 years.
Exactly. So that's where, in theory, you start to circumvent the proverbial luxury tax or salary cap. Not that there is one, but that type of thing. You know? So you start to be able to move the money around a little bit more. So that's, I don't know. I think I probably would. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I wasn't upset about it. I was like, wow. Okay. I wasn't blown away as I was with like a Manny Machado or somebody like that. Like, I do think it's an insane amount of money. And I thought it was insane when Alex Rodriguez signed his 10-year, $250 million contract. But I don't know. It's just, he's one of those guys that like, he just sets the mark. Whatever the mark is, he's going to set that mark. And the thing about that though, and this is another argument that I like had with somebody else about something, is you look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes. At the time, he signed a 10-year contract or 13-year, whatever it was. I don't remember what the duration was or whatever. And that day when he signed it was the top paid quarterback in the NFL. Obviously, best quarterback in the NFL, making all the things happen, winning Super Bowls, doing all the stuff. 2 years from then, he was not.
He is not the best quarterback in the NFL currently.
And if you sign a 10-year contract, by the end of the 10-year contract, you're going to be like one of the lower paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Whether he's still actually quarterbacking or doing it at a high level, who knows? But at the same time, like, that's what mind boggles me in a way, the long duration of the contracts, not only the injury factor, but also from the player. Like, you're clearly not really betting. I mean, you're getting that security. I get it from a player standpoint. You're getting the security. I have 10 years of contract money. I have all this money guaranteed. I know I'm making $700 million. That's fantastic news. But at the same time, like, if you thought maybe you'd stay healthy, well, I'm going to do like a 4-year contract and make $80 million a year. And then I'm going to do another contract and do a 4-year contract and make $120 million a year. Because everything, it's the nature of the business. Obviously, like I said, the $250 million contract was insane for Rodriguez. We're up to $700 million now for the same duration. So it's over time, like, it's going to go up. And so how do you build that in? And maybe that's what they do. Maybe instead of $70 million, maybe he's only going to make $30 million this year. And then next year, $40 million. And then by the end of the contract, he's making $200 million that year or something. Like I said, I don't know how the structure was set up, but I don't know. A lot of angles, a lot of interesting stuff with that.
Yeah, I couldn't pay it. I think it's too much. What if he gets hurt? What if he blows out his arm this year and that's it? Now you're on the hook for $700 million for a person you can't even use.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of ridiculous. I think these guaranteed contracts in pro sports need to go away. I think they should be performance based and not 10 years, 15 years, 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how it should, year by year and performance based. That's how you should get paid. Like I couldn't pony up $700 million for an unknown. Like no way.
And that's the
no
other
way.
That's
is
the
he
other.
Still going to be able to pitch as good as he is and hit as he could in 5 years from now?
Probably not.
I mean, that's insane what he can do. He is a generational talent, like you said, but are you really going to do that 5 years from now?
Yeah,
Hit 40 home runs and have an ERA of 2?
7 years from now, he's going to be a so-so guy.
Right. It's crazy. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. I like watching him. I think it's great watching his stats and seeing his highlights, but $700 million for 10 years guaranteed? I don't think so, Scooter.
And that's the worst part about the entire thing is you say no, I say yes. Somebody's going to pay it.
Right.
And that's where the money keeps going up. It's like, what's enough for you?
Where'd they get the Angels?
Well, exactly.
Nowhere.
Yeah, that's getting done absolutely nowhere, which
Nowhere.
is insane to me that they've had those two guys. And that's, again, that gets back to you get Mike Trout and Shoie Ohatani on the same team and you can't make the playoffs. Is that a managerial thing? You could get into that argument or whatever. But that potent of a lineup, clearly you can't affect it from that standpoint. You can obviously affect the game, but you can't take over a game from that standpoint. You can't do those things. So, I don't know.
It's pretty crazy, that's for sure.
It definitely a larger conversation than I'm gonna need a lot more beer if we're gonna get too much deep into that.
It's definitely pretty crazy, man. I don't know. Sports are getting kind of crazy with their contracts and the amount of money. That's for sure, all across the board. All major sports. It's like, really? Well, that's on the flip side. We're the idiots that watch the TV and buy the jerseys and go to the games and spend $25 for a can of beer and $12 for a hot dog with no mustard and ketchup. You got to spend an extra $3 to get some mustard and ketchup on it. We're the ones that pay for all that stuff. So.
And you get Amazon that's paying hundreds of $1 million to get a crappy Thursday night game because they just don't care because they're still getting the money for it. It makes no difference to them. So, yeah, I don't know. It amazes me like where this money is coming from. Obviously, it's advertising. It's everything but that. But at the same time, it's like, how do advertisers even have the money to be able to do this? I don't know. It's business well beyond me.
Money I wish I had.
Yeah, if you're an advertiser and you're desperate to part with some of your money, like we'd be happy to, like. We'll put your logo on somewhere on our logo. We'll talk about
We'll give you a 2-minute clip.
Yeah, we have Neil's widgets down at the widget factory have been
the best widgets you've ever had. I use them every day. They work good on my shoes.
Absolutely.
Hair.
I use them while I'm drinking beer for the podcast. We'll get your information out there. We'll do our best. Reach out to us on social media.
Put hashtag 2 guys in beer at the / of widgets.com, save yourself 10%.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah, it's all available. Just hit us up on the social media. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's our episode. Unless you've got anything additional, I think that kind of covers the gamut of the Eagle Brewery and the banana bread beer and a multitude of other topics, including Major League Baseball payroll and the Kardashians.
I don't have anything else of knowledge today. No, just the Eagle banana bread beer. Tastes like banana bread in the aftertaste. If you can find it, try it. Let us know what you think of it.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one and worth giving a shot. It's out of the UK, so it's a little tricky to find, but you got it from a listener, but I think you said it was somewhere in like Roseville or something.
Roseville wine store there. They have it there. It's a beer and wine or wine and spirits or I don't know, something goofy like that.
And then we did have the kind of semi-random fact earlier with the John Denver plane that ran out of gas. It wasn't mechanical failure, just ran out of gas. But what animal has the most dense fur? Sea otter.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
Yeah, they have 150,000 strands of hair per square centimeter. Yeah, good to know.
Wow,
sea otter.
Or it keeps them warm, I suppose, in the sea, in the cold.
Yeah, that's your random fact of the day. So I hope you enjoyed that.
Well, I'll take one more drink to that to finish the show.
We hope you enjoyed. I think is what I said there. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And again, hit us up on the social media, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Instagram, YouTube, Rumble. We're on all the major platforms, iHeart, Spotify. We're also now on Pandora. We've added that to our selection of things, and many, many others. Any of them that are out there, iTunes, like anything that you can be able to find it. So like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies. Just get them to listen for 10 seconds, maybe 30. Whole episode would be great, but just a little bit, trying to get the info out there. So yeah, hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. Go find yourself some Eagle Brewery. And now that's it for me. Shawn, anything from you?
No, thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll talk at you all later.